A lot has happened surrounding the Boston Red Sox over the last 3 days. They not only were able to win the series against the Seattle Mariners, but there was also a few injuries within the rotation and a few interesting moves that we're going to talk about in this episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Massachusetts Pirates team insider Jake Ignaszewski, here as always with my co-host NESN Lauren Campbell, and we're not only going to be talking about the Mariners series, but also looking into some of the injuries that got hit to the Red Sox rotation and what this means for the Red Sox pitching down the line. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So we hope everybody had a great weekend, was able to relax, enjoy the nice weather outside, and also enjoyed the Red Sox winning 2 out of 3 against the Seattle Mariners. But Lauren, they did not make it easy. All these games were super duper close.
They were, and I feel like if these games happened back in April, we would be singing a different tune. So it was nice to see them win close games. Saturday definitely stunk. They should have won that game, but these things are going to happen. But a very successful road trip, an 8-2 road trip. I don't think you can really complain too much about that. Now they get an off day, reset, come home, and hopefully kind of continue this run. Will be a little bit difficult with 2 pitchers on the IL here, but you look at JD Martinez and Rafael Devers and how they continue to help this team. A lot of good things to take away despite a lot of kind of negative things happening this weekend.
Seriously, you said it perfectly, and especially going on the road for 10 days, 8-2, not a bad record whatsoever. Against, you could say mediocre competition, but the Mariners are a relatively very good team. Have a lot of good talent on them. The reason I said relatively mediocre. Oakland A's, Angels weren't really doing too great when we played them, but it's really nice to see this Red Sox offense being able to come up in clutch situations. I think this was sort of the definition of, not only their 2 wins, but also them coming super duper close on Saturday. Like you mentioned, was a little bit of a flashback of what we saw in April, the bullpen sort of blowing the save and blowing the game as well. But shortly, let's touch on Friday's game. Sox won 4-3, very close game. Diekman did get the win. Looking at, JD Martinez was crushing the Mariners pitching. Same with Bobby Dalbec and Rafael Devers. Martinez and Dalbec both homered on Friday's game, but Rich Hill, relatively good start, 4 1/3, allowing 5 hits and 6 strikeouts. I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, I think his last 3 starts, this was probably his worst one, which I guess in that point you could just kind of take it. And especially if he can continue just kind of doing what he's doing, if he gives the Red Sox enough to win, I think that's enough. He's getting into the 5th inning, and I mean, like I said, the last about the offense, these things are going to happen. He's going to have bad starts or not. I mean, this start wasn't bad by any means, but he's going to have those kind of off starts. But at the end of the day, he did enough for the Red Sox to win, and he didn't get the win, but he got them. He got them there. He got the start there.
Exactly, and one guy in Jake Diekman over Friday and Saturday's game. He only pitched 1 inning, but he was very clutch in those innings. Barely allowed any runners on base, and it was a little bit tough for this Red Sox offense to get things going on Friday, but they were ultimately able to get 4 runs in, 6 hits, and they really carried that offensive explosion going into Saturday's game. Ultimately, they weren't able to get that win, losing 7-6, but especially later in that game, they were really able to pile on some runs, and it was a back and forth game most of Saturday's game.
It was very back and forth. I think that's the perfect way to put it. But the offense, like you said, they came up strong, and it's what you need. You need the Rafael Devers, the Bobby Delbecks to get going, or Devers doesn't need to get going. He's always going. But you see it's nice when you're losing 7-6. I feel like it's a bit easier to swallow than a 1-0 or a 2-0 because the runs are there. It's not like the runs weren't there. The offense very much was there Saturday. It just came down to a ninth inning, not meltdown, but a ninth inning walk off by the Mariners.
Right, and it seemed like the pitching, the entire Saturday's game was a little bit off and on. Waka just did not look like himself. He's usually able to not allow a lot of runners on as at all, and usually only allows like 2 or 3 hits, which is pretty crazy to even say for a guy like Michael Waka. But allowed 8 on Saturday's game, also 4 runs, only striking out 3 over 4 innings, and it was tough to see him allow a lot of runners on base. We're not used to that, and it ultimately hurt them with allowing runs early, because then the bullpen eventually had to help them out.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, much like Rich Hill, Waka's going to have off starts too. You obviously want to see him continue to turn in starts that he's turned in before, but 8 hits over 4 innings is a lot of hits over just a few innings. But the Mariners jumped all over him. They did what they had to do, and they got to him fast, and they made the Red Sox go to their bullpen probably a bit earlier than they wanted to, especially going into possibly a bullpen game Sunday. I know at that point it was up in the air, but with all the uncertainties around your rotation, the last thing you want to do is go to your bullpen super early.
Very true, and I feel like even though this Red Sox bullpen and pitching has been relatively reliable, especially over the stretch of May and June, where the Red Sox have really found some good success. But I really think that I don't know when it's going to happen, but we need to add one more guy. There just needs to be one more person that is reliable out of that pen. We're going to talk about this a little bit later in the episode, but it hurts with Garrett Whitlock getting injured, as well as they tried Josh Winkowski out. We'll see if they try him once again, but it's going to be tough for the Red Sox going down this stretch with the lack of pitching, and being able to not have that reliable guy out of the bullpen.
Yeah, and I floated this idea on, I don't know, Friday or Thursday's episode, and I thought maybe Chris Sale would be a good addition to the bullpen because given it's say the starting rotation is healthy when he returns. You don't want to mess up what's going on there if they continue to turn in quality starts. But if you give Chris Sale a defined role, like, hey, you're going to close games for us and make him like a 6-out closer, then the other bullpen relievers fall into place and they kind of figure out their role in the bullpen, maybe get a bit more confidence. We've seen the confidence with Tanner Houck where he has that kind of defined role. No, Alex Cora hasn't named him a closer, but you put him in those situations more often than not, you're going to gain that confidence. So I'm all for putting Chris Sale into the bullpen, get him stretched out a bit more whenever he returns to find that role. But more so than him, he's not the answer to this bullpen. You need more help. You need another reliable arm in there like we needed last year, and it just didn't happen. So hopefully the Red Sox have learned from their mistakes last year at the trade deadline and get a reliable bullpen arm, because you need that. You need relievers to kind of put you over the edge. And if you're going to be competing with the Yankees, Blue Jays, and Rays, you need all the pitching you can get, because the Yankees can't stop winning games and they can't stop scoring runs. So you need to figure out how to get reliable pitchers and calm down the Yankees. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible, but it's going to be very critical being able to have that depth, especially down the line going into the second half. You're right. Hopefully that they can do that during the trade deadline. But as I've said, why wait until the end of July to make it happen? Just fix the issue, put the Band-Aid on now. And I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Sale come out of the bullpen. It was tough for me to see a guy who we saw was so dominant in 2018, had some struggles in 2019, but so dominant throughout his career, just come back from Tommy John surgery, just not looking like the same pitcher whatsoever. And I think being able to have him come back and not be in that high pressure role where you're really essentially relying on him to be that old Chris Sale, and he gets to come in a little bit more of a shorter, more restricted role where he's able to just focus on inning to inning. And it's not like we need him to go out there and pitch 5 to 6 innings. And I mean, especially if Paxton comes back, I mean, this whole Red Sox rotation could look completely different going into the second half.
It could. I mean, it very, very much could. We don't know how serious Whitlock and Eovaldi's injuries are. We don't know what's going to happen, down the stretch. Anything can happen, but and you put Chris Sale as a closer, right? But then you give him an important role on this team. So he's still helping this team. No, he's not going to give you 7 innings of shutout baseball. He's not going to give you the vintage Chris Sale outings, but you're going to see maybe some vintage Chris Sale stuff in a smaller capacity while still helping this team in a crucial role.
Very true, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens, sort of with this rotation down the line. We as you mentioned, we mentioned multiple times with the Garrett Whitlock and Nathan Eovaldi injuries. We can start off with the Whitlock one, got placed on the injured list with a right hip inflammation, and this is something that was sort of floated around Twitter over the last week or so of seeing Garrett Whitlock, limp on and off the field. Also, when he went over to get a grounder, he was barely able to get over there, and especially for a guy who, he is only in his second year, was a long reliever last year. He doesn't have tons of experience putting this much pressure on his body, going out there this many times throughout a season, and so I feel like that this was the best and safest bet for a guy who the Sox are really going to need down the line.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you never want to see anyone go on the injured list whatsoever, but if you kind of catch this early, maybe he's just sore. Hopefully it's nothing more than inflammation, because hips can be tricky. I mean, you crack your hip the wrong way and you're out for like 3 days, and he does put a lot of pressure on that hip, and you kind of noticed it as well. I remember watching some games, and he would kind of grab at the back of his leg, and sometimes it was just like after every pitch, but I was like, I don't know, something just doesn't seem right about that. And lo and behold, it's a hip. But thankfully, it's like I said, it doesn't seem to be super serious. And I think over everything, it's precautionary. And I mean, you need your hips to pitch. You need your legs. You rely on your legs to push off, and it could screw up your delivery, your mechanics, your velocity, which we've seen with Eovaldi and his velocity going down for different reasons. But you just see how a little bit of inflammation and discomfort can really impact a player. And with Whitlock too, he's still very young. You don't want to mess up anything going down the road for his career. He's already had Tommy John surgery. He's already had a lot of red flag, so to say, on him, where he's like, he probably won't amount to much. And here he is amounting to everything. So you just want to be super careful with him. Like you said, Jake, the Red Sox are going to need him, especially if they continue on this little stretch run that they're here and they can fight for the wild card spot and fight these teams in the postseason.
And I'm curious to see, or I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the biggest reasons we've seen him struggle. It seems like over the last 5 games, his ERA has risen, and his control has looked a little bit off, and he just hasn't looked as dominant as we saw him since he's been put in a Red Sox uniform. We haven't really seen a bad Garrett Whitlock since these last 5 games. So, as you mentioned, that discomfort can definitely affect your delivery, definitely affect your performance on the mound. And Alex Cora sort of went into it as the perspective of we just want to avoid something else from happening. I think that's the perfect way to go about it. And being able to put him on the injured list now, get him the rest that he needs, so then he's going to be ready for those high leverage situations when the Red Sox really need him. But another guy who was placed on the injured list, Nathan Eovaldi, that one, when I saw that's a blow. That's a tough blow, especially with how effective he's been over the last few games due to a lower back inflammation. And, I actually saw him when he walked off the mound his last appearance. He was grabbing at that back. And so you could see it affect him a little bit in his last start, but he was really able to muscle it out.
He was, and I talked about this on Friday's episode a little bit, that his velocity was down and that it didn't really seem to be too much of a concern at that point. But whenever someone's velocity is down, and it was down, he's a 97, 98 mile an hour thrower. He was throwing 93, 94. And I was like, okay, that's a little too far down for my liking, especially for somebody who has elbow issues. And then you start thinking the worst, where it's like, is it his elbow? But it was his back, and hopefully it's just the 15 days he'll be fine and more precautionary than anything, because he had a rough May in terms of like the home runs and the ERA, but he was still valuable. He's eating the innings for the Red Sox, and they're certainly going to need that down the stretch of the second half of the season. I can't believe we're talking about the second half of the season already, but you're going to need someone like Eovaldi going into the 6th, 7th, maybe 8th inning. Hell, maybe even throw another perfect game. Who knows?
I hope so. Cross our fingers. We just got to keep on stacking up those perfect games. But I got to echo that. I've said this to my friends multiple times over the last few days. We're already in June.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, I don't know if any of you guys are listening or watching. I feel the same thing. But 2022 has flown by. I actually had somebody say to me, they're like, "Are you ready for 2023? You realize it's practically already there." I'm like, stop. Because like for me, I mean, I'm 23, and that makes me think of 24, and I'm like, listen, like, stop.
Oh, you got plenty. You got lots of age ahead
I know,
of you.
I know, I got lots of age, but it just scares me getting older. But it is crazy how fast the time is going, and that's why we got to enjoy these Red Sox games while we can. And it's nice that they're playing as well as they are, but it's pretty crazy, looking at their schedule. Down the stretch. I mean, they have an off day, and then they play 9 games in a row. Then they have another off day on the 23rd, and then they begin a 23-game consecutive stretch until the All-Star break. I mean, that says perfectly how much that pitching is really going to need to be on their stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's already June 12th, and they have a very grueling schedule. They've kind of had a weird schedule to start the season. They had the opening day rain delay, and then they had the long stretch of games here without a day off. And yes, people will be like, "Oh, don't feel bad for them. They're millionaires. They get paid all this money," but it's still grueling on their bodies when they're working 23 straight days without a day off at the end of the day. So it's going to be a big test for them, especially with who knows what the rotation will look like. Hopefully, knock on wood, there will be no more injuries going forward, but it will be a big test for them. I think we'll see some rest thrown in there too of the Bogarts and the Devers and the Martinez. You don't want them getting injured in this long stretch of games, but hopefully they can just grind it out and just it's also a good time for them to try to build off that or build on their record, but keep carrying this momentum. Just keep it going through the end of the season. Don't stop now. Put foot on the gas. Do not hit the brake no matter what.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. And, we're going to talk a little bit more about a guy in Cutter Crawford who's going to be helping out this Red Sox rotation and pitching depth in our second segment of the Locked On Red Sox podcast. But Lauren just wants to take a second to talk to you about Athletic Greens.
Yeah, Athletic Greens and AG1 is something I take literally every day. I wanted more energy in the mornings. My schedule is really grueling, and we're doing a ton of work on our house. So I need the energy in the mornings to start my day right. And that's exactly what I do when I take AG1. So what is this stuff, you might ask? It's 1 scoop of AG1, and you just put it in a cup of water. And with that, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients that supports your gut health, your nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and your aging. Jake, you just talked about getting older, so this would certainly support your aging. And it's just, like I said, supports all of those things. So like I said, I personally consume AG1 because I wanted more energy in the mornings. Even got my fiance onto it. He's not a caffeine drinker for whatever reason, but this helps him get his day started right and have all the energy that we need. And it's also lifestyle friendly. So if you're on a keto diet, maybe you eat paleo, you're vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it won't interfere. You can take AG1 without a worry in the world. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, none of those nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and it still tastes good. It also supports better sleep quality and recovery and supports your mental clarity and alertness. It's the one thing with the best things. And right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with the convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That is it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy on you, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D, and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Wait, so Derek does not What does he do for caffeine?
Nothing.
I was flabbergasted when you said that. Like, how does he
Nothing.
stay awake?
He's never had coffee in his life. He's never taken energy drinks. Um, he's just an incredibly hydrated man.
How many cups? I'm gonna have to ask him this next time I see. Like, how many
Yeah.
cups of water does he have? I need to figure this out. I mean, I at least need 2 coffees like every single day, and
Yep.
especially for game day. Like, the Pirates are sponsored by Cintron. I should say, I at least need one like during game day to be able to be on my stuff.
Yep. I feel you. I have big caffeine addiction. I don't know how he does it. Good for him because I can't do it. I'm pre-workout. I'm caffeine. Anything like that.
I feel you. But looking back at the Red Sox, I just couldn't believe that. I just had to ask. But looking back at the Red Sox with Cutter Crawford on the mound on Sunday, what an outing! I mean, last time you and I went to the Woo Sox game, he was on the mound, and he allowed. I remember it was like 5 or 6 earned runs, and it made me think like he didn't do anything like this up in the majors. Like, he was very impressive, and I was surprised to see him struggle down with Worcester. And he amassed a 7.43 ERA over 13 innings down there, allowing 11 earned runs, but only allowing one hit against the Seattle Mariners. Did walk 4, but very good in this game.
Yeah, much like the theme of this, you take the good with the bad, and the walks, you obviously want to limit those walks, but you look at the overall performance and you look at the overall outing, and you have to be pretty happy with it, especially when you're in a situation like Sunday when you're putting two pitchers over the last few days on the IL, don't really know what you have in Worcester. I mean, you've called up a few people before, it hasn't really worked out, and you're just hoping to get through this series and finish it strong. And that's exactly what Cutter Crawford did. He gave the Red Sox a chance to win. He gave everything he could. The only thing I'm going to criticize is those walks because we've seen it so many times, not just with the Red Sox, but other MLB teams, how much walks can be damaging. Thankfully, the Red Sox still were able to win, but you have to be excited and you kind of have to be optimistic about if he gets another start with Whitlock and Eovaldi on the IL, you feel a bit more confident than you did probably when the last time he was up.
Very true, and the Sox are really going to need his reinforcement innings. As I mentioned earlier, we could see Josh Winkowski be called up, maybe Connor Seabold for some reinforcement innings if the Red Sox do need it. And it's pretty crazy for a guy like Crawford over his last 3 appearances in the MLB, eight and 2/3, has only allowed 4 runs, struck out 11, has walked 5. But I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean that's including today. So he only walked one guy outside of today in those 3 appearances, and it's you never really see somebody have massive success in the MLB and struggle in Worcester, but it's encouraging when the Red Sox need it most.
Yeah, usually it's reversed. Usually um the good stuff, the success, the success in Worcester doesn't always transfer to Boston. And we saw that with Franchi Cordero last year. We've seen that so many times with a lot of minor league players. You can even argue Jaron Duran has kind of not been able to really find his footing in MLB, but it's funny to see him, with an almost 8 ERA, Crawford, and to come up and just do what he did on Sunday. So very encouraging, and hopefully we see him get another start, and hopefully he can mirror that minus a few less walks. I wouldn't mind that, but he's been able, like you noted, one walk in his last two outings before today. So you take the good with the bad. This is the theme of today's episode. So hopefully he can just build off this and kind of get it into a groove. And he's probably going to go back down once Eovaldi and Whitlock come back, but start using that momentum in Worcester and make yourself a September call-up, make yourself very attractive to not get passed over for a call-up, and prove that you can pitch in the majors.
I hope we get to see him again too. I think he might be the main guy in the rotation that they're going to stick in there. I think Tanner Houck. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. He did close Sunday's game. He's had some good success closing and going in 1 or 2 innings, and I do like him in this long reliever role. I know some people might want to see him get another shot in the rotation, maybe get some more innings, but I even though Houck has more experience in the majors, I feel more confident with Crawford in the rotation and keeping Houck where he is.
Yeah, I like where Houck is right now because it seems to be working for him. He seems to really find his confidence, and Cora hasn't named a closer. He does want to name a closer at some point, but now we're getting to the halfway point of the season. And Matt Strom has fared fine at points in that closing position. Tanner Houck has done really well in that closing position as well. And like I noted earlier, you just give these guys defined roles, you're going to get more out of them. But if I'm Alex Cora, I am incredibly hesitant to put Tanner Houck back in the rotation only because you're whatever he's doing right now is working, and you do not want to get in the way of that.
Couldn't agree more. And you talked about that good stuff earlier, that success. And somebody who's been having that a lot is Rafael Devers. I mean, he was essentially the only Red Sox offense in Sunday's 2-0 win due to his two-run home run. But I mean, we saw him also homer in Saturday's game. He just has continued being able to find ways to hit balls out of the ballpark and just come up in those clutch situations. I mean, it's really crazy looking at this Red Sox lineup. You have 2, 3, 4 with all Devers, Bogey, and JD Martinez in that upper 300 batting average.
It's amazing what Devers can do at the plate and how he makes it look so effortless. The swing is just so smooth. The ball just goes a billion feet, it seems like. They're going over 400 feet so often. And it's great to see him have this success. Hopefully, this is continues through the entire season because the Red Sox need him to continue this production. He's on a torrid pace right now. He's obviously fun to watch. He's always fun to watch, but when Rafael Devers is having success, he knows it, and he gets this confidence and this fire in him where he seems to be unstoppable. And he'll likely cool down, most players do, but I just feel like he's in a really good spot right now, and the Red Sox just have to keep pumping him up, keep riding this hot streak that he's on, and just enjoy it. He's so young, and there's going to be so many more years of this too. But right now, what can you what can you not say about Rafael Devers and the success he's having at the plate?
He's just been so good. And I'm just saying this, but I don't want to bring up the conversation. They should just sign him to 10 to 300. The price is just going to continue to go up and up and up. And I mean, he's most definitely, in my opinion, going to be a selection for the All-Star. And he just has the leverage on his side right now. And it's just I need the Red Sox need him in their uniform for a very, very long time. But all we can do is just cross our fingers he continues this success and continues to help the Red Sox get those W's like they were able to get 2 of them against the Mariners. But going into our third and final segment, I want to bring back something that we have done a little bit, mental health minute. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about BetOnline. So BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA, UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, going into this mental health minute, I had an interesting perspective shift over this weekend. I was stuck at a stoplight, and I was getting so frustrated with how long it was taking, and was in a big rush to where I needed to be. And I had recently listened, or I was scrolling through TikTok, and the BFFs podcast that Dave Portnoy has, it's with that TikTok kid Josh Richards. They had this it was one of Josh's friends. They had this TikTok star like on the podcast, like literally like 4 days ago. And I was sitting at the stoplight waiting for it. Actually, now I'm saying this. Shouldn't be saying this. I was looking at my phone waiting at the stoplight, but I noticed that this kid unfortunately had passed away, and it broke my heart because I had literally seen him like talking on a podcast like 3 days prior, and it just really put me into perspective that every second counts, and especially with when I was complaining and what situation I was in. I'm like, why am I in such a rush? Like when I should just be grateful that I'm here, I'm breathing, I'm in a car, and it just really made me think like, wow, like you never know if you're going to see somebody one day and you won't see them the next day, and you got to be grateful for every second that you have with the people that you care about.
It's so true, and it's unfortunate that since I graduated from high school in 2008, I think a total of 10 people have died from my graduating class for various reasons. One of them was one of my best friends right before our senior year. Another was a really good friend of a friend of mine, and all of a sudden it's like we're teenagers. Like why are our friends dying? And even as you get older, it's like, okay, why are our friends still dying? And it's just it's a harsh reminder to make sure you tell your friends you love them. And it's so cliche. Call your mom, call your dad. And like, every second counts and every moment is precious. And not just with our friends, but also with our family too. I mean, shout out to my grandmother whose birthday is Monday. So today, as we're recording, she's 94. So every second counts with her too. And she's knock on wood, incredibly healthy, very healthy woman, very strong woman. But something like that too, where I sit with her and I'm like, just 10 years ago, she's obviously slowed down a bit, but every single moment I talk to her on FaceTime or I get to hang out with her, I was like, just cherish this moment because one day she's not going to be here. Just like one day our friends aren't going to be here. And we don't want our last conversation or our last interaction to either be negative or thinking in your head, like, we could have done more, or I should have done this, I should have done that.
Couldn't agree more. And I haven't stopped thinking about it since I saw it. And I wasn't like a fan of this kid, but um, he did struggle with mental health and drug abuse, and it's just why you and I both enjoy talking about this, raising awareness about this, because it's something that continues to be raised awareness about. And especially with just being able to check in on your friends, making sure that they're all good. It's so important. And I'm going to echo what you said, Lauren. Just tell your friends that you love them, that you appreciate them, and same with family too, because even if it's just out of the blue, they'll appreciate it. But as always, greatly appreciate everybody tuning in to the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and his unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the number one daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to follow us on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. Follow myself. It's at Jake Iggy, and Lauren as well. It's la 3 laws. Lauren with 4 R's. Ours. And we're super excited for the Red Sox to continue going back home, continue winning these games, continue having success. And if you have not yet, make sure to subscribe on YouTube or on whatever audio platform that you listen to, because we keep you updated Monday through Friday. We greatly appreciate everybody who listens, tunes in, and supports. But I'm going to end it how we always end it. Let's go, Sox. Peace.